And we are live. Welcome to the Political Orphans. My name is Nico Lagan, and I am your in-house conservative. To my left, Rob Ambrose, our token liberal. Our goal is simple. We want to show you that it's possible for a lefty and a righty to not only get along, but to be able to have a civil conversation when we disagree. Because never forget, common sense has no political affiliations. Damn, nailed it as I'm driving.
How's it
going
going,
on, bro?
brother? Yeah, that's about how you doing.
Living the dream, brother. Living the fucking dream.
You're on the road.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was invited to go to the NCI event just outside of Toronto in Kitchener, the National Citizen Inquiry, and I'm going to be there for the next until Sunday. I'm going to have interviews with a bunch of fucking cool people. If you don't know what the NCI is, I got to be careful about what I say on here. I do stuff that the government does not like. But it was started in 2021, if I'm not mistaken, during the time of the whoop whoop. And it's an inquiry into the lockdowns. It's an inquiry into the government powers, or the powers that the government basically used, the emergency powers, to fuck with us. So that's the whole point of the event. It's awesome. Like, I've seen some of the stuff that they do. It's my first time attending, but we are the political orphans are now real independent media because this is what we are. It seems like I fucking don't like it, but that's what it is.
Is it like a convention or what?
Yeah.
What are they?
Yeah. It's a convention that lasts from tomorrow to Saturday. They have a gala on Friday nights. I'm gonna have to wear a suit. I haven't worn a suit in a while, man. But it's a full-fledged gala. They have speakers the whole way through. The organization have been doing it for quite a few years. They have some of the most prominent doctors, lawyers, business owners, nurses, like everybody. Like, there's a lot of people that were injured by the whoop whoop that are there. They talk about what happened. They lost their jobs, lost their careers. But what's interesting is that the NCI is kind of refocusing their goal, and they're going to be talking more about the trans agenda, woke ideology. So they're really starting to get a bigger scope of work, which applies to what we do every single day. So yeah, it's a good time, bro. I've been looking forward to our show kind of morphing into something more credible, if that makes sense. Not just two yahoos, as you say, recording in their basement, like
sort
conspiracy theories.
Yeah, sort of a higher quality.
I'm saying that as I'm recording out of my car, but yes, higher quality indeed.
Yeah, we're really gonna step our game up as you record out of your car while driving. No,
I want to make sure that we're seen as serious people that are not just creating content like I've been doing for the past 4 years, but that will be reporting and even creating the news. Because this is the next step, right? If we're going to be believable as a media, an independent media source, we need to be right where the action is. And it starts right now, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think interviews like we had yesterday with John Carpe, I think that goes a lot towards that. We got a lot of really good feedback on that, and that was just a great interview. I think I know I really enjoyed it. I think you did, and I think John did as well.
And he's gonna be back. I'm trying to get him to agree to come on, because one of the things that the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms do is that they help religious people with their religious right. So I'm in the process. He hasn't agreed to it, but I'm going to do my best to convince him to come back on the show so that he can talk about our religious freedoms. I want to approach the Muslim part, the Sikh part, like, why are they allowed to walk with knives when I can't even preach on the side of the street? Not saying that I'm a preacher, but a Christian can't do that. So I really want us to tap into the religious aspect of things in Canada. And again, that is not confirmed. I haven't had any confirmation from the Constitutional Center, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom, but I am trying to get the lawyer that is on the case of Amy Ham. Is that
Mm-hmm.
how you pronounce it? You guys
Yep,
brought it up,
Amy
yes.
Ham. Yep, yep.
As soon as you guys started talking about it, as soon as they were, you guys mentioned that there might be an interest for this. I'm in the
Yeah,
talks right now to try to
yeah.
get the lawyer that was on the case to show up, and hopefully we get to time
Well, it's a
Amy and the lawyer at the same time.
yeah.
So we're fucking doing the work, bitches.
It's a crazy case. You know, it's caught the attention of J.K. Rowling. I know Amy had posted a few weeks ago this like $10,000 handbag J.K. Rowling had sent her to say like thank you for standing up for women's rights. So it's it's a pretty cool story. And I think she'd be a great guest. But yeah,
That's gonna be our next one.
yep, as you
We're
say,
gonna
you
be
know,
working after Amy. We work on J.K. Rowling's. Okay, that's the next thing. We need to have
yeah,
J.K. Rowling's on the show.
yeah. I mean,
I am high, bro. Aim.
look, the show is, you know, it's a mover and a shaker. You know, we've joked a lot about Pierre Polyev. You know, we've said it looks like, you know, we could have swear that one of his team is watching our show. We were joking then, but I'm kind of like, because if you've seen him lately, you know, remember what we were saying? We were saying he's got to get out there, he's got to be talking about the issues, got to be visible, and do podcasts because that's the new media. And in the last week, he's out there, he's being visible, he's contacting that Mario that guy, and he's also contacted Mark. What's his last name?
Mark Nixon. Mark Nixon posted yesterday that he actually got contacted by Pierre Polyev.
Pierre
I don't
Polyev.
expect him to contact me because I talk too much shit about him. But
Yeah.
just to say that tomorrow, it's a perfect segue to say that Mark Nixon is going to be on the show tomorrow for 45 minutes. If I remember correctly, he's going to be showing up at 12:30, and we're going to be talking about the G7 summit, what it means, what happens. We'll do a deep dive in the G7, but be sure that we are going to ask him about what the fuck did Pierre Polyev say.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Mark Hill, our guest for tomorrow. We're going to be talking, as Nico said, about the G7. But yeah, interesting. We saw a tweet he did yesterday saying that Pierre Polyev had called him. So we'll get the inside dope on that. If you guys have any questions, you know, you can always throw them in the chat because that's what this show's all about. That'll be a great show too. You know, I think that's sort of the direction the show is going, just higher quality. And as we say that, ignore that Nico is driving doing a show while in the car. As Misfit says,
that's the thing. This is the type of commitment you can expect from Rob and I.
Yeah,
I
that's
will
right,
record from wherever the fuck news is happening. And tomorrow and Friday, I will be recording from the NCI event in Kitchener. I already planned out. I already have the approval to be able to record as the event is going on. So this is the type of content you're only going to get on the Political Orphans, and you're welcome.
Yes, exactly, right. And that's a great segue there. All right, so we'll take a couple of the comments here. Misfit says, "Oh shit, so we do podcasts from the truck now." Yes, we do. As Nico said, it's a show of our commitment. No matter what we're doing, we're gonna be here for you guys.
I literally stopped at a truck stop in order to make the thumbnail, set up all the live feeds, make sure the YouTube's on, just enough. Pop the laptop, did what I had to do, come back on the road. So that is the level of commitment you will not see anywhere else. These two yahoos care.
We're here for you. That's right. And you know, and that's a great point. We believe in what we're doing here, and we believe in this community. And I know that a lot of you guys that are regulars, I know you guys do as well. Pam says, "Come my way, Nico. You can podcast live from the tractor." I think it's probably a little further than he's heading, but you never know. Maybe someday.
You know what's awesome though? I was supposed to stay at the Crown Plaza in Kitchener because that's where the event is, but I am not a fan of hotels. Hotels disgust me. I will sleep in a hotel with no blankets on, fully dressed because it's nasty. It fucking drives me nuts. And the organizer of the NCI texted me earlier saying, "Hey, I found you a place." He calls them freedom, like freedom fighters. So I'm going to be hosted by people in Kitchener. So I'm just going to show up to their places, to their
Oh,
place
nice.
to. So if I get murdered, that's what happened.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that.
If I'm not there tomorrow, that might be the problem.
You got murdered. Yeah, yeah. And
I
well,
look
then
too tasty to pass on.
and then that'll be a nightmare because we'll have to get a new co-host for the show, and it'll just be, yeah.
You're not gonna find another cool Frenchie like me. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah, I suspect there aren't too many Frenchies like you. That's for sure.
There's not a lot of cool Frenchie, and
Yeah.
not even less conservative cool Frenchies.
Yeah, actually, Quebec's pretty liberal, eh?
You know, this is funny because over the years, what I'm noticing is that we are very conservative in our belief, as in Quebec needs to be a bit different because of the French language. So we're very conservative when it comes to our language, but when
Yep.
it comes to our politics, somehow it doesn't translate. We, in
Well,
my
and
opinion, Quebec people from Quebec, and sorry for the people from Quebec on the show, we are the most idiotic people because we are very conservative in the way that we believe we need to protect our culture, but we're so fucking liberal in our approach to politics. Very fucking interesting.
well, but now some issues specifically like immigration, I believe Quebecers tend to be more conservative because it ties into that protecting the French language thing. They want to make sure people, I don't think there's any taboo. It's not woke for Quebecers to say, yeah, we want stricter borders or we want less people coming in.
Just like yesterday, I don't remember who brought it up. I think it was Aaron that was saying that was talking about Bill 21 from memory,
Yep. No, that's
which
right. That's
is
right.
basically preventing the religious, um, how can I say, your religious beliefs from being displayed as a public worker. And
Mm-hmm.
then you had the, they're talking about passing a law for immigration that they need to integrate. They need to speak French. So we are very conservative in our values when it comes to French. But politics, for some reason, Frenchies don't want to call themselves conservatives because I think it goes against their. It's like they just don't like the term. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
that my job as a conservative, as a Canadian conservative, will be to help Canadians to understand that being conservative is not a bad thing. It just means you care about your culture, you care where you come from, and you want it to be respected by the people that are visitors in your country. Nothing wrong with that.
No, there isn't at all. Gary Barrett says, last I saw J.K. Rowling's yacht was docked in Halifax Harbor. Yeah, actually, I remember that too. I was down there. I grew up in Halifax and I go down quite a bit. And I remember that. I believe it was last year. Yeah, as you said, that was June 2024. Yeah, it was pretty big, eh? That Harry Potter money is definitely. Oh yeah, she's rolling in it.
Bro, she's worth what, a couple $1 billion? At least $1 billion.
Yeah.
And you're talking about a writer that's worth a couple bills. I don't even think that what's his name, Stephen King. I don't even think Stephen King is worth that much, and he's been around since the Earth was created.
Yeah, he has been. I feel like Stephen King must be. I'm gonna just out of curiosity, I'm gonna look it up just because. But he's also a special case because he has been writing for. No, it's only 500 million, which is crazy for all the writing he's done.
That's it. He's only worth $500 million for writing fiction.
What a
pussy. What a twat! What a fucking twat!
What a chump! All right, we got. Let's see here. Good morning, orphans. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you as well, Pam. Squirrel Nuts, appreciate reposting the stream. Mad Dog, happy hump day, all. You right back at you, sir. Misfit, Bill C5 that Carney is trying to push is scary. Okay. All right. We're getting right back into it, eh? What? I'm just going to go with that very quickly right now. And if it's that kind, that's could be First says First Nations calls on feds to reject Bill C5. Oh yeah, this is the one I was telling you about yesterday, Nico. It's where it basically gives the federal government, i.e., Mark Carney, authority to override laws, rewrite environmental regulations, and sidestep constitutional obligations. So is it like a master key? Is it like the law to, the one ring, the law to end all laws? Because that sounds pretty fucked. Imagine if you just passed one law that said I have the power to override all the other laws. It almost sounds like that's kind of what it is.
We should definitely dig into it because I have not.
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to admit that I did not deep dive into Bill C5. I was too focused on looking at Bill C2. But if that's the case, send me a text, bro. We'll dig into it. I'll make sure that I have more information for Friday or maybe even tomorrow to deep dive into it. Because if that's the case, we need to address it. And once again, I think this is the approach that you and I want to take. We want to stay. We want to be the place to come if you have questions about a bill, because we will do those deep dives that other people don't have the balls to do it or don't have the patience to read bills.
Yeah.
We will read them. So how about we look into it for tomorrow? Because it might be a good thing to talk about. And maybe Mark Nixon actually has an idea of what Bill C5 is all about. Because as we stand right now, I don't know much.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I briefly saw it yesterday, and I have not done anything more into it. But yeah, it does sound pretty. Like, I'm looking at a headline here from the Toronto Star. Mark Carney's Bill C5 is a naked power grab that tramples our democracy. And
Toronto Star is the wokest of the woke. The Toronto Star is like, I post their stuff all the time because they're so idiotic.
Yeah,
like they posted last week about how Father's Day should be a day to recognize single mothers. I'm like, hey, fuck off. So that's the Toronto Star. If the Toronto Star is talking against a bill, bruh, we need to look into it because there's something seriously wrong with it. But at the same time, it makes sense. I've been drilling that into you guys' head because I am reading Mark Carney's book. And the fact that he wants to put climate, he wants to have the power to reorient how we create bills based on our ideology is what he talks about in his book. Up to now, I'm like probably halfway through, and he keeps on talking about that's his main goal, is to put our values, what we believe in, at the center of our economic policies, our value. So it's insane. It's absolutely insane, but it only makes sense that he's trying to do that. But the fact that the Toronto Star's calling him out, you know that there's a massive fucking problem.
Oh, yeah. I'm just reading about it here now. You can see on the screen there. Mark Carney's demanding power to suspend all federal laws. What will he use it for? Mark Carney's election platform did not include giving himself the power. Federal fast tracking bill would allow cabinet to exempt favored companies. Yes, that's what it was. Would allow cabinet to exempt favored companies from any federal law, opening a massive door to corruption. And as I was telling you yesterday, it also, I believe, and that's why we'll do the deep dive, but I believe it also allows federal government to award no bid contracts to certain companies, favored companies, perhaps modular home companies, companies that are owned by Brookfield. You can see lots of reasons why this. Honestly, it's kind of disappointing. It's just it's not even really slick or novel. It's just old-fashioned corruption. It's just.
But it's not surprising. He describes it in his book. If anybody wants to understand Mark Carney, read his book. He's very transparent as to what he wants. And this was written in 2021, like it was released at least in 2021. So that was before he became PM. So there's no lying. This guy is not scared to say what he thinks because he did in values. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. But I'm not surprised. So you're thinking about Bill C5, you start adding Bill C2, and it's just a matter of time before we see another Bill C63 showing up his face to regulate the internet. So you know what he stands for. He is a censorship. He believes in censorship. No questions about it.
100%. And so I think definitely we're gonna stay on top of that for sure. Robin, good morning to you. Misfit, talking about Bill C5, just saw it this morning. Essentially gives the liberals the power to override laws. It's basically a Trojan horse. Yeah, it sounds like it. And it doesn't even sound like it's that well disguised. It sounds, I think that Toronto Star article said naked power grab, and it does, I feel like that fits. Robin, yeah, that bill is scary. I hope the committees will make them better before they approve it. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, what is it? I mean, again, I'm just knowing what we're talking about now, so we'll have to do a real deep dive. But I wonder, is there any benefit to it? Is there any good things about it? Or because it's, you only want to make bills better or improve them if like there's something good about them. If there's nothing good, I don't think you can improve them. Robin says a leader can override the House with energy with that bill. Yeah, is it the leader that gets the power, or the head of the federal government? Or I guess, yeah, the leader being the prime minister. Misfit says they have Mother's Day, we have Father's Day, they can fuck off. So that actually doesn't fit with anything that we're talking about, but I got a feeling I know what you're talking about. That Toronto Star article that was on Father's Day, and it was classic Toronto Star, because it was like, I'm going to bring it up here in a second. It's something like, I don't know, Nico, did you see it? It was something like, on Father's Day.
It's on my X. If you want to go to my X account, I reposted it, I think, yesterday or the day before. It is the dumbest fucking thing. But the worst part is that they're not the first one to say that. I was a massive men's rights activist for a long time. And I kept on hearing it time and time again. Oh, Father's Day should be about single women too. I'm like, Mother's Day outside of Christmas, but do you know that Mother's Day outside of Christmas is the most popular holiday? Like, it battles Christmas. Father's Day is not even top 5. I don't even think it's top 10. And they still want to make it about women, but they're okay with having dudes dressed as women playing their sports. Get it right. I don't want to get you started down that road, because that has nothing to do with the show. But goddamn, like, fuck, at least be constant. But the point is, if those twats are calling Carney's bill a power grab, imagine what it actually is.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt. No doubts on that. Yeah, and just kind of going back to this ridiculous thing here. I think if they could imagine if they said that about on Mother's Day, like let's celebrate fathers too. Of course, they would freak the fuck out. So that's always your little trick you can do to figure out if something's just woke bullshit. Is if you reverse it and you know that we would never be allowed to do it, then it's just woke bullshit. All right.
So you want to jump into the main subject of the day, because I think this is going to take a very interesting turn and a very cool debate. I'm looking forward to the comments on this one, because I think you and I are up or on to something that is not being discussed right now when it comes to the Israel versus Iran conflict.
Yeah, exactly. So that is, and we'll start with the question of the day here. So it appears that China is now supporting Iran, which isn't too surprising, but you're starting to see and we've talked on the show a lot or at least I have, where I believe that probably the next major geopolitical shift is probably something like a new Cold War, except instead of the West versus the Soviet Union, it's the West versus China. And the Soviet Union will be a satellite of China, and also Iran. Iran has been making moves for 20, 30 years. They have a plan, and China. They have a plan, and they are executing very, very well. They think long term, and they, I think in many ways, I think they understand what's going on. I think they understand a new Cold War is inevitable. And the West is completely oblivious to it. I think the West still thinks we're just regular adversaries or competitors with China, whereas China understands that the West is an enemy in the way that the Soviet Union and the West understood each other as enemies during the Cold War. So that's with that sort of as a framework.
But I would add even something more, just a little keynote there.
Yep. Yeah.
China's been planning this ever since the free trade agreement were put in place. They have built their
Yeah.
entire economy on the back of the West, especially the US. Now they have one of the most powerful army. They're expanding their middle class, and that was all done on the back of the West. And this is, if you look at history, most of us today are just instant gratification. So we're not able to think more than 5 minutes ahead. China's been planning this for decades to
Oh yeah.
gain power through the West by producing goods and services, especially goods that are so cheap that the companies will not have a choice but to move their manufacturing there. Because if you look at the way it works, the state, because it's a communist country, the state owns the means of production. So they are self-funding themselves. They are producing goods at a price that it is impossible for us to compete in because it's not private companies that produce those fucking products. They're backed by the state. So they get to produce it at a super low level because they actually invest the taxpayers' money within those goods. So they
Yeah.
created a market that we can't compete on, and now they're one of the most powerful countries on the planet. And I guarantee you, like we're going to talk about today, that they're going to use the Iran Israel conflict in order to force another Cold War. And I don't think that the US is going to have a choice but to back Israel. That's my
No.
call.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with you. Right now, it's starting to looks like it's shaping up to be. So as you can see here, this is from the Telegraph article. China sends mystery transports into Iran. If you actually see if I can zoom in here, see how there's very no almost no planes above Iran. They all basically go around of it. It's because it's a no-fly zone. Here, I'll zoom in even more. There's a no-fly zone in Iran right now. So China going in there, like that's not just a regular airline. This is almost certainly military planes, and they, the question is how much is China going to get involved? Are they going to? Certainly, they're going to help militarily. They're going to help with intelligence, the way that America is almost certainly helping Israel with intelligence. The big question is, does it become a ground war? Could they send troops? Could they, could America get more involved? I think me and you talked before the show, and we were kind of like, yeah, I feel like the World War III rhetoric is probably a bit dramatic, right? A bit overblown. I don't see that as likely. But could it be a proxy war the way the Afghanistan war in the 80s were, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, and then the United States through the CIA funded the Mujahideen and armed them. And of course it came, anyone who knows their history, it came back and bit them in the ass because when they went into Afghanistan, they faced many of these same fighters that they had trained after 9/11. It could also be similar to Vietnam, which was obviously a very classic proxy war. And that's one of the hallmarks of the Cold War is these proxy wars all over the world. And when you see what's shaping up to what could be the first major proxy battle of this so-called new Cold War. Now, the thing about this is we won't be sure we're in it until we've been in it for a while, right? This could be the opening salvo of this new Cold War, and we won't know it yet. So there is that to keep in mind.
It was reported. It was reported this morning. I was listening to the radio, and a very leftist station in Quebec was talking about how China is so obviously in the conflict between Israel and Iran. The first thing that Israel did, or one of the first things that they did, was to attack the radar stations. So all the system of air monitoring was attacked by Israel, which, by what the reporter was saying this morning on the radio, has been completely destroyed or mostly destroyed. And they were showing 747 Boeings, if I'm not mistaken, that's what the reporter said this morning, that were disappearing over Iran. Obviously, they're not disappearing. It's not the fucking the Bermuda Triangle. It's really just that they're they are ending up in Iran. That is what their main destination was. They're landing. Thank you. So we're starting to see that China is getting involved, and I guarantee you, man, that it's all done on purpose. They will force the hand of the US to take a stand when Trump, up to now, has been trying to. I don't want to say that he's been trying to get away from it, but he's trying not to pick a side. Because even on the radio this morning, which kind of blew my mind because it's a very liberal station, the guy was giving props to Trump. And we're talking about a political commentator that's been in politics and was actually elected for 30 years. He's been in politics for 30 years, and he was saying that he believed that Trump was genuine in his goal of not wanting to perpetuate the war that's going on between Iran and Israel, which blew my mind. I'm like, am I back in Alabama here? What the fuck type of station am I listening to? Took me a second to remember that I was in fucking Quebec. But if you have people that are extremely liberal saying that Trump looks genuine, and I'm not saying I agree or I disagree, it's just the fact that they're saying it out loud blew my mind. But I strongly believe that if China is indeed doing what they're reporting to be doing right now, we could be seeing China forcing the hand of the US to join by aligning with Israel. And obviously, it's no secret that the US is more behind Israel, that they align with
Well,
Iran.
yeah.
Like, that's not a
Yes.
fucking surprise to anybody, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they could be forcing their hands to join and actually pick a side and start giving weapons outright to Israel, in the same way as we've been funding the war between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty, as Chris H here says, he says, according to Brian Berlatic, the Chinese don't have power projection capabilities that the U.S. has, so they can't provide troops. I'm not an expert on Chinese military capabilities, but that sounds about right to me. I don't think they can move troops around the world the way the United States can, and that's based on Navy size and also just heavy lift aircraft. But they'll get there soon enough. In the meantime, I would be shocked if this turns into a shooting war between China and America. One thing about an economic system that sprang out of the 70s when Richard Nixon went and opened up China is both countries are kind of reliant on each other. They can't destroy one without destroying themselves. So to that extent, it gives us some leverage, but I suspect China's got a plan, and once they've sort of got all their pieces in play, I think you're gonna see some pretty nasty things happen to the U.S. dollar. I think they're gonna start dumping U.S. debt treasuries in really extreme amounts, to the extent of I think the end goal is they want to become the world's reserve currency. The BRICS, the BRICS currency, they want, because there's a ton of benefits for a nation that holds a reserve currency. The United States would not be nearly as rich as it is. They would not be able to fund nearly as much of their lifestyle as they can if they did not hold the world's reserve currency. And I believe China wants that.
100%. The BRICS currency is the next step for China. And one thing worth noting is, if you look at history, they say that type of power, being the number one money used for trading, like the US is about 80 years. Because it used to be England. But about 80 years ago, just after the Second World War, the US took over as the world's currency. And that comes with a massive power, because you get to put sanctions on people. You get to be involved in every single international transaction because it's your money that is regulating it. Oh, if you could, remember what Rothschild, I think it was Jacob the Rothschild, what he said: I care not who runs or govern a country as long as you let me print their money. If you control the money supply, if you control the money, you're going to be dictating wherever the fuck you want politics to go, because you have the last say. And unfortunately for the US, if it is true that it is an 80-year cycle, like has been reporting in Fuck, what's the name of the book? It's something Strauss.
Is it the fourth turning or fifth turning
Yes,
or
the fourth
something?
turning. Thank you, the fourth turning. So if it is true that it is 80 years, it's been 80 years. So
Yeah.
we're at the cusp of another power grab somewhere. And I'm not sure that I want China. When I say I'm not sure, I don't want China to be the world's currency. That doesn't sound attractive to me at all.
No, 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 no. Yeah, as you said, you hold the world's reserve currency. You're involved in every single global transaction. If Germany wants to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, they need to buy U.S. dollars first and then pay in U.S. dollars. And that means that, again, yeah, you have your finger in every single pie in the world. There's enormous economic benefits to it, and I believe that is what China's end goal is. As Pam says, my take is this is what currency collapse looks like to the USA. Expect more war, not less. Yeah, I think I think you're definitely onto something there. I think right now the United States and China have a vested interest in keeping each other solvent and afloat because yes, America is heavily indebted to China, but China is the one who is owed that debt, so it doesn't benefit them right now to completely collapse the American economy. But I think once they get their ducks in a row, I think it will, and I think they are going to execute on a plan, and that's why people need to take this seriously.
And I don't think, like, to go back to what we were saying earlier, at least that was one of the comments. I think it was Chris Sage that was saying that we're not going to see boots we're
No,
not going to see Chinese boots
no,
in Iran. And
no,
I don't see the Americans
American,
putting
no.
boots there either. It is going to be a war between Iran and Israel, but because we call it a proxy war because they're going to be funding both sides of the equation. So China will be funding the war effort for Iran with weapons, not troops, but weapons, maybe drones,
Yep.
maybe long range missiles like we've been funding Ukraine with. And the US is going to do the same with Israel. So it is technically going to be a war between the
Yeah.
US economy and the Chinese economy, but it's going to be
Just
fought on the back of Israel and
yeah,
Iran.
through proxies, exactly.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. As Chris H says, the new Cold War has been going on for a while now. It started with the Euromaidan coup and economic issues with China. Yeah, I think that the problem is China is the only one who understands that we're in this war, and the West, I do not believe. I don't think that we do. Some people do for sure, but I don't think as a
They don't
broad
understand than we
as a
are. They
broad
brought it in.
consensus. Yeah.
It's done
Yeah.
they don't just understand, they brought it. There's a
Yeah.
good reason why Trump, like, go back to the tariffs that Trump's put in place on China. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was fucking with China. That was a way to call out China on the world stage to make them look weak. China
Yeah.
did not like that at all. And now they're going to take advantage of the Iran Israel conflict in order to kind of go back at the US. This is geopolitics on a world level that I know in my generation I have not been aware of. I have not seen something like this. Let again fucking report on it. But this is insane. What we're seeing is the geopolitical conflict of this generation. Like, it is crazy what could happen from this. Although I don't think this is going to turn into a World War III. I don't think we're going to see them go head to head. But it's going to be an economic war that Trump kind of pulled the bear with the tariffs. I think he did it on purpose. I
Yeah.
don't think he saw the Israel/Iran conflict, or maybe he did. Maybe, I don't know. I don't underestimate people. I don't think they're idiots. I don't think the US are stupid. I don't think China's stupid, but they're going to take advantage of what's going on in Iran/Israel to kind of push the economic war that we're going to see developing over the next few days, next few weeks, next few months.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I think for all the criticisms you can level at Trump, and there's many. I do believe his anti-war stance is legit. He's been pretty consistent. He's pretty isolationist, and perhaps you could even say too much so. But no matter, regardless of it, of whether you agree with that policy, I think that is in him. Is he does not really want America to be involved in almost any wars, at least as I see it. No, he does
It's
not have the.
expensive. It's
Yeah, it's
expensive.
expensive. He,
Like how many economies have been destroyed? The UK got destroyed because of the Second World War, like economically speaking.
oh yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
in a state that the US is right now, where he basically rode in saying that he would make the economy better, I don't think he can afford to go to war because that will destroy his main platform, basically. So,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good point. As Chris says, the U.S. is already involved in the war. The Israelis are entirely incapable of fighting any conflict without the weapons can the U.S. give them. Yeah, that's true. Mostly America, they're entirely dependent on American support in the Middle East, both monetarily and militarily. And that's why, we talk about this. I don't think there's any way Israel would have launched these attacks without at least running it by Trump. And I suspect Trump probably said something like, oh, do what you got to do kind of thing. But he clearly didn't stop it. But it, certainly America already is involved. So is Canada. I think the question is, how involved do we want to be? Do we think this is something we should be involved in? And I have no doubts that some of the major countries are licking their chops at another war to prove, to act as a military proving ground for all these new technologies, new weapons that they're coming up with, drones specifically. But clearly that's what Ukraine and Russia has become, is a giant testing ground for a lot of these weapons for the military industrial complex.
You know that companies like Boeing, companies like Lockheed Martin are drooling right now.
Oh
They
yeah.
want conflict. That's how they make fucking. I think the most wealth creating activity in the world is war, especially when those companies' weapons are going to probably be used to fund both sides of the war.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of money there. That's for damn sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's always been the case. There's always been a lot of money in war. Robin says, I feel like the Ukraine and the Russian war was designed to rob countries of their money and military capabilities to deplete the West for this upcoming war. Yeah, I mean, and it's certainly depleting Russia as well. But if you want to stick with this big picture Cold War theme, it doesn't really matter if Russia's military is depleted because it's China that matters. Maybe China used their Russia as their lapdog or their attack dog. That's something that's
They
certainly
did
positive.
again. Don't underestimate China.
No,
They've
they're
been playing
brilliant,
the
man.
long game for a long
They
time. Oh, bro,
yep.
it's like I say about Mark Carney. He is brilliantly evil. So is China. And
Yeah.
this only happens, if you notice, this can only happen under a communist country because the president or the guy that's in charge of the country does not do 4 years at a time. They can play the long game. They can play a very long game, play the 10, 20, 30-year game because they're not going to get replaced unless they get assassinated. So as long as they don't get killed, they're capable of staying in power until they decide not to be, until
Yeah.
they die, basically, because that's what dictatorships do, right? They're in power, they get to control that country for however long they can remain in power, and that is all they need. But they've been playing the long game, and I think you're right. I think they have been using Russia as their lapdog, especially in the Ukrainian slash Russian war. They didn't have to put any boots on the ground. They did not have to get involved at all. And now, if this was the plan, being able to fund Iran over a war with Israel, forcing the hand of the US to get involved, is the perfect plan because the US is already depleted. Israel is already depleted. And they don't give a fuck if Iran gets destroyed in the meantime. It doesn't matter. China does not give a fuck
Oh no,
if
no.
Israel or Iran wins. It does not matter. The goal is to bring the US into that proxy war and deplete them further. it's actually brilliant. The more we talk about it, the more it makes sense what's going on right now. It is evilly, is that a word?
Evilly,
Evil,
maybe.
evilly. I'm making up that shit. It's
Yeah, you
very
can claim
evil.
it.
Let's just say that it's very evil, but it's brilliantly evil.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, as you say, China's got a plan and they are executing it well. It's a long-term plan. So we've got to be, and yeah, they wouldn't think twice about sacrificing Iran or Russia to further their goals. And similar to, just to give a sense of like how power has shifted in the last 40 years. I suspect Vladimir Putin probably didn't need permission from China or from Xi to go into Ukraine, but I suspect he probably discussed it first and made sure that he was going to be okay with it. Because Xi's got a long-term plan and it's a global plan, and I think Putin understands. Yes, they're a nuclear power too, and so that's obviously the great equalizer. But he understands China is where the power center is on the other block, on the other side of the world.
The thing is that it does not need to be a physical war anymore. It's going to be an economic war. They're capable of destroying nations by taking away their money. And considering that China owns most of the US debt,
Mm-hmm.
they're very powerful in what they can do without ever having to put troops on the ground. This is what's brilliant about what they're doing. And I'll push it even further because as I was doing before, I was in the telecommunication world, right? And if you understand the way the internet work, it's based on a trusting system. And what I mean by that is that there's a protocol called BGP, which what it does is imagine that the US is a whole network, right? Their internet is a whole network, Canada's our network, and all the countries in the world are a network. We all know what an IP address is. Imagine that it's your front address, right? It's your civic address. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to send traffic to my friend in the US, for example, or a server in the US, once it hits the border of my network, which is Canada, there's going to be some equipment called routers that route the traffic. So they look at their table of information and they're going to look, okay, where's that address located? Oh, it's in the US. I'm going to send it over to the servers in the US. This is based on trust. So the US is advertising, as we call it, saying, hey guys, if you need to reach these addresses, they're on our network, send us the traffic. And all the networks in the world do this. So it's based on trust. Canada is going to advertise to the world saying, hey guys, if you're looking for those IP addresses, they're on my network, so send me the traffic. So what this is great because it allows a free exchange of information throughout the worldwide networks. The problem with that is that if you have an entity or a country that wants to fake and receive traffic that does not belong to them, what they're capable of doing is to start to advertise to the world that certain IP addresses that don't belongs to them, that they have a better route to get to those addresses. So what that does is that they're capable of rerouting traffic. So let's say I'm trying to send traffic to France. I send
Mm-hmm.
it gets sent to the routers that are the Canadian network. The Canadian networks looks at their table of list of IPs and say, okay, the fastest route to there is through that network. Normally, it should go to France.
Yeah. I'm with you.
If they're using better routes than the one in France, the traffic will be automatically sent to China. Then China can copy all of that traffic and send it to France. So they do what we call a middleman attack or a man in the middle attack. They receive the traffic, they copy the data, and they send it to where it's supposed to be. So unless you're paying attention to what we call the latency, the time that it takes for traffic to go from point A to point B, you're never going to notice it. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and I'm sorry, this is what I used to do, so I'm used to explaining this shit, but China has been caught multiple times over the past decades of rerouting 30% of the internet. 30% of the world's traffic was sent to China when it was not meant to be there, just so that they could be in the middle, receive that traffic, copy it, and send it to where it's supposed to be. And then they would stop doing it. The traffic would reroute automatically to where it's supposed to go. So they've been caught doing that. This is a well-known fact in my line of work, at least in my previous life. So they've been doing this for a long time. They're very smart at what they do. So imagine that they have the military power, they have the technological power. Now they can fuck with people on an economy base and use other country to create a proxy war to go after the US. It's insane when you start. I've never put it together until abilities that they have. And you know what? They don't give a fuck about what other countries do because they've been doing it for a long time, and there's no way to sanction them. You can't prevent them from doing it, the traffic attack that they do, because it's based, our whole system is based on a trust system, so that if a network that interconnects two networks goes down, it can reroute to a different route automatically. So we're trying to prevent our networks from going down by trusting other networks, and they take advantage of it by rerouting that traffic and copying it. It's fuck, man. I haven't had to talk about this in a long time. I love it. Fuck, how is that, man?
It's clearly a rabbit hole for you. But yeah, I mean, clearly, whatever battlegrounds the new Cold War is going to be fought in, cyberspace is absolutely going to be one of the most important ones for sure. Chris H says Trump is fraudulent. He is not honest about peace with Iran according to the pathway to purge document. Yeah, so yeah, you'll have to point me. I'll Google that just so I'm looking. And I'm not saying I can't look into Trump's soul. I don't know if he's actually serious. My gut tells me he actually is anti-war, and not because he's some fucking do-gooder or some altruistic guy. He's just it's about money. He just want to spend the money on it. It's just really it's probably coming to the right conclusion, from a greed perspective, but. Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly no Trump supporter or no Trump fan, and I don't claim to see his heart, but I do think I feel like his anti-war stance is legitimate, or at least who cares? Like, I don't know how he actually feels, but I think he will be consistent in that stance throughout his presidency. I think his policies will reflect it.
It does. His anti-war sentiment, don't make no mistake, his anti-war sentiment doesn't come from I want world peace. That's not what it's about.
No.
He's not there as in that is the moral thing to do. No. He does not. I believe that he does not want to go in there because it will further weaken the U.S. This is strategy, not morality.
Yes. Yeah. And that's, I mean, honestly, that's, I kind of agree with him. I mean, who in the right mind could argue that Afghanistan, Vietnam, Iraq, who would argue that those strengthened America? I don't think anyone could. So another forever war. I don't see Iran heading that way, but I just think the neocons and the military industrial complex have proven that they've never met a war that they aren't wholeheartedly in love with. So you got to shut it down right away. You can't even give them because I'm not a pacifist. I'm okay with judicious use of force, and there are probably some scenarios where I would be supportive of Western forces being deployed. No conflicts today. However, the neocons and the warmongers and the military industrial complex have proven that they will not be judicial in their assessments. They will be, their weapons are a hammer to them, and the rest of the world is a nail, and that's how we have to look at it. Robin says, our money is being stolen in front of our eyes. We can't do anything about it with these specific people in power. I got a feeling it ain't gonna matter who's in power. I think I think this is just the way it's gonna be, regardless. It doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be activists against it. Doesn't mean we shouldn't oppose it. But I kind of got a feeling like it is what it is. Chris says the U.S. shot its credibility as a world reserve currency when it kicked Russia out of the SWIFT banking system. Well, yes and no. It certainly didn't help. But at the end of the day, the concept of a reserve currency, it's not like it's an official thing. Like there's a group that meets together and they decide it. It's something that is based on confidence. The fact that it still remains the world's reserve currency means that it does have still the world's confidence. If it did not have the world's confidence, it would not be the world's reserve currency. That is the entire point of a world's reserve currency is based on confidence. But did it hurt their credibility? Yes, it did. Absolutely, it did. The reserve currency it won't just fail from one thing. It'll be death by 1,000 cuts until China makes the move. As Nico said, it was the British pound that was the reserve currency, even though the British Empire had not been the world superpower for probably 50 or 60 years by that time. They lost their superpower status, and then the reserve currency, the pound, stumbled along for 50 years. And then it was World War II, where the United States, rising out of the rubble of World War II, they became the global reserve currency, and they basically built the economic system that we exist in today, the one that's based on free trade, more or less open borders. And I don't mean just immigration. I mean the way that you or I could fly to Thailand or New Zealand or most places in Africa. You even can fly to China. You'll have some restrictions, but the world is an open place. And that is because that is the world that the American architects designed after World War II, in the ashes of World War II. It did not have to be that way, but they did. And it'll be, we got to think about all these things. Like, if China becomes the de facto sheriff of the world, if they become the big swinging dick the way America has for the last 70 years, the world's going to look up like a whole different place. And, I think we need to keep that in mind. Like, for all America's problems, they are still, I believe they're the best option of a lot of shitty ones to be the global superpower. They've undoubtedly, I'm sure if you ask Iraqi, Afghani, or Vietnamese civilians, especially, a couple of decades in the past, how they felt about American benevolence, they probably would not agree. But I think, broadly speaking, big picture, I do think America has been a force for good. They have not been perfect, but it could have been a whole lot worse. They were the only major economy in the world. They were the only major military in the world. They were the only country that had nuclear weapons. They could have literally had the world by the balls if they wanted to. And they did some pretty incredible things. Up until then, when you beat an enemy in war, you take their shit. You loot the shit out of them. That's what's happened. That's what they did in World War I. They looted the shit out of Germany, and that set the siege for World War II. America said in the Bretton Woods Agreement at the end of the war, they said, you know what, we're going to do something different. We're going to give our enemies billions of dollars. We're going to help them rebuild, because we're the only market left in the world. There's like the entire economies of all the major modern nations were destroyed. America had the only intact market in the world, major market. And they said, all right, what we're going to do, we're going to rebuild all our enemies, all the countries of the world, even the ones we just destroyed. And we're going to open our borders, get rid of tariffs, and we're going to allow you guys to sell all your shit into our country. And we're going to use our Navy to police the shipping lanes to make sure that these goods will arrive here. Now, don't get me wrong, they didn't do that as a goodness of their heart. They absolutely benefit from this system. But it was a benevolent system. It was a good system. I think it's decayed. I think it's probably time to move on to something. But I'm not sure we want China picking the replacement.
It comes down to, if you look at the conflict between Iran and Israel, like forget the US, forget China. If it comes on morality grounds, like I align with one more than the other, personally.
Yes, 100%.
With my morals, like their country represents more what I stand for, and that would be Israel. I'm not saying Israel is right or wrong. I'm just saying their morals align with mine a lot more. The same thing with the US. Is the US perfect? Fuck no. Are they taking advantage of a situation? Of course. Because when they did rebuild other countries, or they gave them the money to rebuild, they made a profit off of them.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it wasn't just out of the goodness of their
it
heart.
was self interest for sure,
Of course it was. They built a
but it
massive
benefited
amount of wealth and control.
and it
But
benefited everybody.
of course it did. But the point is that their values, I agree with their values a lot more than I do China. If you give me a choice of who I would like to be the policeman, I'd much rather have the US than have China. That doesn't say they're perfect. I'm picking the lesser of two evils, but I definitely want to pick the US over China. Let's be real here for a second.
Yeah, I agree too.
Do you want to jump into this? Because I know you have a bunch of videos, right?
Yeah, I got a bunch of vids. I'm just thinking here.
That's not
there.
good. We've been
I'll
through
just
this. Never
don't be
start a
thinking.
sentence by I'm thinking.
I'm
Just do.
thinking. There's just two or three more comments here I'm going to take, and then we'll jump on. So, and actually, as we move on, what we've been talking about now, right here, is the geopolitical big picture of what this might be. Next, we're going to segue in more zoomed in on the actual war between Israel and Iran. We're going to talk about the Iron Dome. We're going to talk about Iran, the country it used to be before the Islamic takeover. And of course we're gonna find a way to tie that back into one of the topics that we like to talk about a lot here. Chris H says Canada's biggest worry is Mark Carney getting Canada more tied up in Ukraine. We got to watch that closely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Nico's got some things to say about this.
Well, the thing is that, again, what was it? I saw reports between 2 million, 2.3 million to 4 million. 2 billion, 2.3 billion to 2.4 to like $4 billion that Mark Carney. So let's call it $2 billion that Mark Carney has promised
Says
Ukraine again.
4.3 here.
See, there you go. So I've seen anywhere from 2 to 4. So let's say $4.3 billion. Mark Carney has promised the Ukraine $4.3 billion, our taxpayers' money, again, considering that 1 out of 4 Canadians is struggling to afford daily necessities.
Yeah.
This is one thing. But where it gets very interesting is that if you start to dig into Mark Carney's past, you start looking at the fact that he was the vice chair of Brookfield. Brookfield being a massive investment company. And the thing that most people do not realize is that right now, as we speak, Brookfield is part of an association of companies that is working with Ukraine right now on a $160 million contract. And they have been in conversation with a group called Advantage Ukraine on how to rebuild the country. So they are seeking financial opportunities to invest even more in the Ukraine. And just like we were talking about what happened after the Second World War, where the US invested their money in other countries to help them rebuild, because it is extremely lucrative. There's a lot of money to be made by helping a country that's been devastated by war, telling them, oh, we will finance all of your public services, all of your streets to reconstruct them, your waterways, we will rebuild them for you. But here's the cost of us doing that. We're not doing that out of the goodness of our heart. So imagine a guy that owns $6.8 million in options in Brookfield, a company that has been dealing with the Ukraine, that is in discussions with the Ukraine to see where they can help them rebuild their country. And then you start to realize that that guy is the PM of Canada. He is Mark Carney. And there's a good fucking reason why he's put all of his assets in a fucking blind trust before he was supposed to, because he did not want us to look at the massive conflict of interest. And now you're looking at Bill C5, like Misfit was talking about earlier. And if he is right, and if your little Google search is correct, now you're looking at a guy that not only has vested interest in the Ukraine, that has the power to give them taxpayers money in order to rebuild or to for their work effort that's going to somehow make it back to the pocket of Brookfield. Imagine that that guy also has the power to give exclusive contract to companies that he wants them to win by having no bid contracts. It's fucking insane. Like, you're really talking about a guy that is evil as shit, that has fingers in all the fucking pies, and now he's the head of one of the biggest countries on the planet that literally has billions of dollars of taxpayers' money at his disposition that he can use whenever the fuck he feels like, and spin it in a way that is, oh, we're doing that to help the good people of the Ukraine. Like, give me a fucking break. But this is what
Yeah.
we're looking at right now. We are in a very interesting time, brother.
Yeah, and you know, and as Chris is, I mean, we haven't talked specifically about your politics, Chris, but I'm going to take it that you are a liberal, and you know, I appreciate that that willingness to hold you know, the liberal leader accountable, just like we all should be, right? We should all be holding everybody accountable, every leader. I'm just gonna take one more here, and then we'll move on.
But
Well, move
before
on
you
within
do,
this
I'm
story.
just going to
Yeah,
say it's our role to hold our leaders accountable, no matter if you voted for them or not. Like, I got
yeah,
approached by uh, a very big Instagram account this morning. They started following me. I reached out, just say thanks for the follow. We got into a conversation, and the person is like, "Hey, continue doing what you're doing." I'm like, you know, man, if the left and the right both hate me, I must be doing something right. This is where we should be as citizens. This is where we should be as independent media, is be ready to be hated by both the liberals and the conservatives, because if you speak the truth, they're going to hate you.
yeah.
Everybody's going to hate you if you keep bringing it up, and that's our goal. So Chris H, good for you for speaking against the liberals or keeping them accountable, because believe me, I will keep the conservative accountable on top of keeping the liberals accountable.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know, that's kind of what we try to push here. Is no matter what, just you know, we don't need more tribalist politics. We got to call people out, even when we like them, or even if we support them. Final question before we move on. Joe says, Rob, the Marshall Plan implemented all the policies the do-nothing conservative Congress rejected in the U.S. in 1946. And in 20 years, both Germany and Japan were kicking our asses in the markets. Yeah, I don't know too much about like the domestic politics side of it. I just more of, you know, study the history of the Marshall Plan, and but that is interesting. But yeah, honestly, that's when I think America really was great, man. Like that was just an unprecedented move. You just literally basically took over the world. You defeated. You're the last one standing. There are not too many countries, empires, nations, societies in our history who would not have taken that all the way, and they willingly. Now, you know, as Nico said, they did not do this out of the goodness of the heart. They profited enormously, but it showed a willingness to think outside the box and get in a situation that where everybody profits enormously. Certainly, Japan, Germany profited enormously, and you see the legacy of that decision today, where Japan is a staunch American ally. You know, Japan is technically part of the West, not culturally, but like economically for sure. You know, they are that capitalist, industrialized, westernized nation, and is directly related to those decisions. So, like, you know, it's a great example of you know, keep your friends closer and your enemies closer. You know, they turned because you understand how fanatical the Japanese were during World War II. They were a highly militaristic society. Yeah, just the kamikazes was a classic example. They imagine convincing I don't know how many kamikazes were, but there were thousands, I believe, thousands of American pilots to fly their planes into play. You never could. You know, America ideologically is too individualized. It just wouldn't make any sense. But the Japanese back then were like ants. You know, they were, everything mattered was the motherland and for the good of the, you know, the tribe or the homeland and all that. And then America nuked the shit out of them twice. You know, you had the stage set for a, you know, a blood feud, you know what I mean? Like a decade long terrorist attacks of, you know, Japanese, you know, terrorists trying to smuggle nuclear weapons, dirty bombs into the US. They probably would have succeeded, you know, and they completely turned that around. They turned them into a staunch ally within years. So, I mean, I know it's fashionable to hate on America, but man, they did some incredible things back then. Yeah, so let's move on. We're going to stay within this story, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to discuss. We're just going to zoom in a little bit, less about the geopolitical situation and more about the actual war between Iran and Israel. And specifically, we wanted to. So it's actually the first clip I'll play is this guy. This is. I saw this. I thought this was interesting. If anyone who knows the history of Iran, it was a westernized country. The Shah was deposed in the 70s because he was too westernized, and then the Islamic takeover happened, and they became the Iran that we all know and love today. Now, I will. First, I'll
know and love.
Well, yeah, I'm obviously being.
That's an interesting choice of word.
Obviously being facetious, but first, before what I found was interesting is the Shah of Iran, the Shah that was deposed is dead, but his son, who actually looks identical to him, he's an old man now. He's, you know, people who still believe he's the rightful Shah, and they suspect that if the current regime is toppled, because I think that's what they're going for. I think that the West is going for. They're trying regime toppling, or they're trying to collapse this regime. Now, anyone who studies history knows, be careful here, guys. Regime topple has a funny way of backfiring, especially when Americans try it. But he's probably going to be the guy they put in if they manage to successfully topple this regime. And I thought it was interesting to see him come out because it seemed very, you know, it almost makes you wonder if American intelligence is such that the regime is, because I've heard that. There's rumors out there that the Iranian regime is closer to toppling over than we think. But I saw this video and I want to play because I thought it was incredible because it ties into what we talk about, where, you know, Islamic values, Canadian values. Is it? This is what Iran looked like in the 70s when they were Western aligned and before the Islamic takeover.
اگه یه روز بری سفر بریز پیشم بی خبر
It's only 45 seconds or so. I think we tend to think the Iran we see today is the way it always was, but that is not correct. Mr. Doctor, Iran in 1979 looked a lot like Canada in the 1990s. It does. You're right.
A lot of the Middle East as a whole, like I saw great videos showing it, all the countries in the 70s and the 80s and the 60s, what they looked like, and then the evolution under Islamic law. Oh, yeah, of course, like we were talking before the podcast, this is the best. If you want to know the value of a country, see how the women dress. And you see a lot of the Middle East countries in the 60s and the 70s looked very much like the 60s and the 70s in the US. Now you compare to today, they're like,
that's right.
You can see eye cracks. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. But we have not been shown that in our generation because it's just before our time, right? Our generation and the
Yeah.
generations after don't realize that those places were very Western looking prior to Islamic takeovers.
Yep. No, that's right. And now this clip's only 30 seconds. This is gonna blow your mind because like it's women in bikinis. Like this is Iran.
Well, I got down on my knees and I pretend to pray. You know the preacher like to go. He knows I'm gonna stay. California, California dreaming of such a winter's day.
Women in school. Just and that's not really related to the war, but it does tie into something we talk about a lot. This is what happens when different cultures clash. The Islamic world does not have Western values. That's not a value judgment. I'm not saying that's good or that's bad. We're right, they're wrong. Forget that. It's just a fact. They do not share the same values, and the opposite is true. We don't share their values, right? Okay, it's not about right or wrong. It's just these are facts. And you look at that. That is what Iran was. And yeah, Nico, there was a I wish I could find it because it had basically this. It was a picture and it showed traditional dress versus what they look like now.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It was a video showing the traditional dresses of the Middle East compared to today. So we're talking about the same thing. I should have fucking saved that video.
It would have looked something like this, except this is just one country. It would have had like 7 or 8 countries. Because even Afghanistan in the 70s looked kind of like Iran does here. These are not ancient cultural practices. These are new practices that are forced on them. And the common denominator is Islamism, fundamentalist Islam. And the fact of the matter is, many of the people that we are admitting in massive numbers to the West are the fundamentalist versions. We need to be open about that. And it's so frustrating because the people who will call you racist, will call you a bigot for that. They're also the ones who pretend to care about women's rights and gay rights. And those are the first things out there. Listen, if there's an Islamic takeover here, I'm a straight white dude. I'll be fine. It's the gays, it's the women that are going to be fucked. And it's so frustrating when you see people, defending this, wrapping it all up as intolerance. You can have too much tolerance. You cannot tolerate this kind of intolerance. And this is what our future is if we do not get smart about immigration.
Hashtag queers for Palestine.
Yeah, exactly right. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying we're better than them. I mean, obviously, you can probably tell I think that, but it isn't about that. It's not about values judgment. It's not about who's right and wrong. It's just they're different, and we need to accept that. And this is a little segue off of the war discussion, but this is what happens when Muslim majorities take over. So just something to keep in mind.
The other thing that we need to keep in mind, and this is what I'm going to keep an eye on over the next few days, over the next few weeks as the conflict develops, is I've already seen videos of Iranians speaking about this as in this might be an opportunity to overthrow the Islamic State. Use what's going on right now. Like, I've literally seen videos of Iranian supporting what Israel was doing because they don't want to be under an Islamist state anymore. So, man, this is why it's very fucking interesting what's happening right now, both geopolitically when it comes to the US/China, but it is also cultural what's going on right now. Can you imagine living in a country where some of the people want another country to invade them, attack them, so that the people that are in power gets overthrown, and you get to have a different type of leader so that your culture changes? Because this is what we're seeing in Iran. It's very fucking interesting what's going on right now. Like, it has so many facets,
Oh
that
yeah, yes, yeah. It feels like it could be the premier geopolitical event in many ways. Like, look, if there is if this because you're right. I mean I'm not obviously an insider in Iranian society, but I get the feeling that the Islamic regime is not a popular one. I think the people are held in check by fear, and we all know that's effective until it's not. Until at the moment the people sense weakness in the dictatorship, then all hell breaks loose. That's why they crack down so hard. Remember, there was it started out women were protesting in the streets, and they cracked down real hard. I think they executed several dozen of them in publicly because these sort of repressive regimes they need fear. They need the people to believe in their strength. The second that people do not believe in it or they sense weakness, they will come out in force. Because at the end of the day, it has to be fear that keeps people in check. No matter how powerful a government is, they're only less than 1% of the population. If the population rises up, they will lose. And that could be, if that happens and then they reinstall the Shah, who many like he right now he's the Shah of Iran officially in exile. I don't know where he's living, probably in the States. But if they reinstalled him or some other Western friendly puppet, that would massively change the balance of power in the Middle East, and it would. That alone would qualify it as probably the primary geopolitical event of our lifetime, maybe rivaled only by 9/11.
the other thing to keep in mind too is that I say this about communism, but any very suppressing governments like the Islamic State
Yep.
in Iran, you can vote them in, but you're gonna have to fight them out.
Yes,
and this
you
is the
can't vote them out.
problem, right? You can vote communism in, but you're gonna have to fight it out. And this is what we're seeing with Islamic State. So you're bringing a very interesting point by saying that not only is the culture there probably about to change, but it's showing how ours have been changing closer and closer to becoming that Islamic State. And we need to be very fucking careful to not let it happen. Because once again, you can vote it in, but you're going to have to fight it out.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, and that again, people often forget Hitler was democratically elected. There are many examples of democratically elected people who they don't leave, and so we need to be very careful. So I'm just gonna play this clip from the shop right now, and I'll jump into some of the comments because it looks like there's some really good ones. So this is this guy here. This is him during when his father that was the Shah and overthrown in the 70s, and this is him today.
جمهوری اسلامی همیهنانه جمهوری اسلامی و رهبران نالایق و جنایتکارش ایران ما را به جنگ کشاندند و مسئول و مقصر اصلی وضعیت کنونی هستند. این رژیم پس از دهه‌ها فساد و بی‌کفایتی و
I don't think he would do this on a whim.
در شکننده‌ترین و ضعیف‌ترین وضعیت خود
He's basically predicting the downfall of the Iranian regime. He said his collapse is near.
تنها به دست پرقدرت ملت بزرگ ایران ممکن است. ایران متعلق به شماست و بازپسگیری‌اش نیز.
And yeah, it's another minute of that since Kent does speak English. I'll just stop it there. But I just thought it was interesting because it almost suggests that perhaps there's more going on behind the scenes. Perhaps the regime is actually weaker than we thought. And I have no doubts that America's got their fingers in all kinds of pies, and the CIA is probably all over this like white on rice. But it would not at all surprise me if you just see a regime collapse, and that would be a major that would be a game changer, I think, for the Middle East. We'll take a few of these comments here, and then we're gonna shift to the actual specifics of the war. We're gonna talk about the Iron Dome, and then that'll be it for this topic. Pam says the American government has never gotten over the hostage incident. Keep that in mind when you view the current situation. Yeah, and that is and again, I'm not an expert in that situation, but I believe it was during the Islamic Revolution when they overthrew the Shah. They took over an American embassy, didn't they? Yeah, in Tehran. And there was a movie made about that with Ben Affleck.
There's a great movie on that with Ben Affleck that explains how they took them out. I don't remember. I really don't remember, but there's a great movie about the implication of the CIA in faking a movie that would take place in Iran order to be able to rescue some of the people from. I remember the most random fucking shit ever, bro. So I just don't remember what the name of the movie is. There's a great movie. I don't like Ben Affleck, but he's pretty good in that movie, though.
Yeah, he was. Mr. Doctor, this is a great question. What side do you think the radical left will take with Iran? Are they pro-IRGC regime or pro-Iranian citizens? Or are they just anti-Israel no matter what? I think the radical left is, and you're starting to see it, is just anti-Israel. And I'm shocked that I've seen. No, I wouldn't say it's a consensus or a common argument on the left, but it's enough. There's a decent amount of people who are pro-Iran in this conflict, just because they hate Israel so much, and they also hate America, right? They hate themselves, and they just hate that. They hate being on the side that America is on. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a liberal. I think liberalism, especially classical liberalism, is good. But far left, woke liberalism it's just about self-hate and hating everything that comes from your culture and glorifying everything that comes from every other culture, regardless of the merits of it. So it's a great question. One
thing, since you're in front of your laptop and I can't do the research, but this morning, again, I was listening to the radio for a few hours as I'm driving to Toronto. And one of the guys on the radio station I was listening to this morning made a very, very interesting comment, which I don't know if it's true, but I'd like you to verify it if you can. But supposedly that there's a union in Quebec that is openly endorsing Iran and Hamas.
I don't even think it's Quebec. I think it's CUPE, CUPE, Fred Hahn.
It's possible. Like I was listening to it this morning. I did not hear the name of the union, but supposedly that there's a union somewhere. I thought it was in Quebec, but you might be right. Maybe it's a Canadian union that was openly cheering for Iran and Hamas.
That's a great segue from
bro, you're a fucking union. You're there to represent workers' right, not to have a political opinion, especially not with a terrorist organization like fucking Hamas.
Hands off Iran. Hands off Iran. This is the CUPE, CUPE members. And CUPE is, you probably won't be surprised, talk about like the least surprising thing in the world. CUPE is the union for public sector employees, so government workers.
Oh, of course it is. Those purple-haired fucks. Of course it is.
Hands off Iran. That's so fucking ridiculous. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, and it answers Mr. Doctor's question perfectly. This, CUPE right now is clearly far left, and they're actually going out to support Iran. Yeah. This, Warren Kinsella, whoever that is, says this is so fucked up. CUPE supporting the #1 sponsor of terror in the world, and they just hate Israel that much that they don't care who they have to support. Now, if you look down here,
so basically, a union that is responsible for government workers is using the money from their union contribution to openly support terrorist organizations.
Yeah,
make that make sense.
If I were in the union, I would be furious. I wouldn't be in it. But like CUPE is quite radical. They're also at the leading edge of the trans debate as well. They're just they clearly have been taken over by like extreme far left activists and you can see it in their politics. But this is pretty shocking even for them. It's funny if you look at this here, down here, the sponsors, not entirely surprising. It's hard to see, but I can read some of them out there. That's Palestinian Youth Movement. There's a couple Palestinian flags, the Iranian Canadian Congress. So, it's the usual suspects all at the bottom here. But yeah, it's pretty shocking. Like, this is they are the number one sponsor of terrorism in the world. Iran is not a force for good. They are bad guys. And I actually don't think the Iranian people are bad people. Obviously, they're an entire people. They can't be bad. I don't but they are not supportive of, for the most part, of their government. It is primarily the government. And that's why, if this leads to the toppling of the Islamic regime in Iran, they will be doing the world a favor. But it's pretty shocking to have a Canadian union out there going on marches and protesting hands off Iran. They're just fucking idiots who just need to protest.
It shows a very interesting cultural shift, or at least the possibility of a very important cultural shift in Iran. Yep. And at the same time, it exposes how idiotic our culture has become, that people
I think you're frozen. Guys, is Nico frozen for you, or am I the one frozen? Maybe I'm just talking here to myself.
Oopsie. What I was saying is that it's interesting to see an organization that supports these movements that they could not live in those nations. Like our purple-haired lesbians are not going to go live in Iran.
No.
It's insane that they can support organizations like that, countries like that, Islamic that, yet they would not be allowed to live the way that they want to live over there. They live in a country that allows them to live however the fuck they want, not only to live however the fuck they want, but to be in some of the most powerful positions in the country, as in a government worker. You can be the biggest butch lesbian you could be the biggest dude with a beard dressed as a woman at the government, be employed, have a great job, but yet support Hamas, support Iran, that those people would teach you how to fly. It's insane. It's absolutely ludicrous. But this is the culture in which we live. Yet the same people, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen over the next few weeks, to see if there is a toppling of the Islamic State and see the liberation of women in Iran.
That would be
see
huge.
How imagine those same movement trying to defend that. Trying to go against the liberation of women.
Yeah, that's a great angle. I hadn't thought of that.
Because the mental gymnastic that those fatties are going to have to play is going to be awesome. It's the most exercise they've ever had in years.
The purple-haired
for sure. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of exercise. There's going to be a lot of dancing there. Try explaining that one.
That's a great point, because you let's say hypothetically the regime collapses and there is this massive liberation of women. It will be huge. It will be a major global story. Probably one of the biggest stories in women's rights. The only bigger one would be Afghanistan, if the Taliban collapsed and Afghanistan women were free from their oppression. But it would be hilarious, because every single time these woke far left idiots are like, oh, you can't, it's racist for you saying that you don't want to have unmitigated, unchecked Muslim immigration, or that's somehow racist. It'd be like, what do you think was the deciding factor that led to that liberation of all the Iranian women? It was the collapse of an Islamic regime. You know what I mean? It's like, how can they? I mean, it's only frustrating when you look at far left arguments, because you expect it to make sense. Most normal people, not that you expect it from the left, but what I'm saying is most normal people expect any argument to make sense, right? We all expect, yeah, you might be right, I might be wrong. this and that, but we expect our arguments to at least be coherent. But with them, they don't even try. Like, their arguments are not coherent. And if you look at it through the normal lens, it drives you nuts. It's only when you realize, oh yeah, they're just fucking morons. And the activism is the point. They don't really care about the things they're trying to care about. It's the activism and the virtue signaling and feeling morally superior. That's the point. And when you understand that, it makes so much more sense.
Mark my words. Mark my words. They are going to sell that as the patriarchy is once again taking over.
Yeah.
Do those women really wanted to be liberated? Is that the best thing for them to be dressing up that way? Or are they just doing that because the men in power now want them to be sexual objects? At least before, they weren't sexualized the way we are here in the West. And it's always those big fat lesbians that no man wants to touch. They're saying that they're sexualized. So you know that's how they're going to spin it. Mark my words. Patriarchy, sexualization, it's all the fault of the men. Now men expect women to dress up like sexual objects. How can we endorse this? Islamic State was better. At least women were women.
They'll say. They'll say it was liberation from patriarchy and not Islam. And then you'd be like,
I'm saying the patriarchy it's taking over now. By liberating the women, women are being controlled by men that become sexual objects. And prior, they were that way. If they're going to spin it, how are we to tell that culture that women did not want to be dressed like that, that it wasn't a choice? They're going to think about the most stupid thing they can say. That's what they're going to say. Because they have no law. Once you remove logic from the equation, the dumbest thing is what's going to come out of their mouth. You have to expect them to say the dumbest fucking thing because it's not logical.
Yeah,
fucking 100%. Patriarchy. Down with the patriarchy.
Sylvie says, Rob, Western values are better than Middle Eastern values, than third world values. Nothing wrong with admitting that's true. Yeah. I mean, certainly the Muslim values, yes. The leader of the religion was an admitted pedophile. And it's hilarious. He married, what's her name? Aisha at 9 years old. You know what's hilarious? The argument they will say, and they'll say it with a straight face, will be like,
he waited
until she was 11 to have sex with her. Oh, okay. It's cool, man. Cool. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah. And these are the people that we have to pretend have a superior culture than us. No, that's bullshit. I don't accept that. I was just saying that, Sylvie, just sort of for argument's sake. You can remove that if you want, and just because it still works, just to say that they are different cultures and different in a way that they do not mix. They do not match up. Detective Gaines, how's it going, brother?
Hold on, before you go there, it's just to say to Sylvie, it's to play devil's advocate. Even if you don't agree with their culture, it still holds truth. But yes, our Western values are way better than their values. I would be the first one to say that. Fuck this shit. I don't want to live under Islamic State. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm not going to live very long. I'm not interested in... I'm a Christian first and foremost, and I'm not going to do well in an Islamic State. As in, I will join the LGBTQ of buildings.
Yeah. You're going flying too. I mean, there's there's no comparison. We in the West, we have superior values to what I see in every single Muslim country that I look at, and we can't be afraid to admit that. And their values worth fighting for. And I think hopefully the West pulls its head out of its collective ass and figures that out. Detective Gaines, haven't seen you in a few days. Good to have you back, brother. Robin says, so basically Iran has been destroyed by Muslims and now they need new locations. So they're coming here to destroy. Well, yeah, I mean, and don't get it twisted. They don't think they destroyed it. Like, they think that's conquered. They've conquered it and they continue to hold it. And now they're going to go for more. They're not sitting there being like, oh man, we really fucked up here. They're saying, oh wow, this is great. Now let's go do it in Canada. Let's do it in the UK. Let's do it in France. Let's do it in Germany.
They're going to push the agenda. They're just going to push the agenda that the Zionists killed their country and now they need to reestablish somewhere else. They're not gonna discredit the movement or the religion. They're just gonna say this is exactly why we need to be more vocal, more out there explaining why Islam is so important. So this is just ammunition for them, for the people that are in North America. No questions about it. This is just going to point more fingers at Israel and blame them for the wrongs of their religion, not to say, oh, I think we have a lesson to learn here. No, fuck no. That's not going to happen.
No, they don't learn lessons.
Just like they're not going to learn from their lessons.
That's right. All right, Mr. Doctor says, I think QP and Fred Hahn are paid for by the IRGC or Qatar, though. You can't trust anything from them. Is that, are you just saying that, or is there actually some rumors about that? Because I would not be at all surprised. It's certainly when you see stuff like that, it's one thing to support Iran, but talk about not reading the room, going out and actually act like protesting, hands off Iran. Why is that even if you hate Israel, why is protecting Iran anywhere near your top 100 priorities? And he says, a lot of these protests organized are paid for by Iran and Qatar. Qatar. I don't doubt it. I think it's probably pretty easy to do. I think we know unions famously are corrupt as fuck. Look at Jimmy Hoffa. They're heavily mob influence. I'm not talking about what unions do, like collective bargaining. I don't have a problem with that. I just mean historically, union leadership tends to be extremely corrupt. So that wouldn't surprise me at all. Mr. Doctor says there's no point trying to argue logically with the radical left. They are uneducated idealists with either no life experience or retired, rich, and detached from problems of today's society. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Much of the problems with far left ideologies and theories and ideas is they fundamentally ignore actual human nature and pretend that humans are it's if only humans would behave in this way that humans never behave, then we could have this utopia. Well, yeah. And if if your fucking aunt had a penis, he'd be your uncle. You know what I mean? But that's not the case. That's not the world that we live in. We have to, any theory that is taken seriously or is going to be applied, whether it's economic theory, political theory, even a religion or not, it has to take into account human nature first and foremost and not work against it. And so much of far left, communism is a perfect example. In theory, if human beings were like ants and could be expected to sacrifice themselves for the good of the colony in every single example, and corruption, there's no corruption in anthills, you know what I mean, in ant society. But we are not that. That is not our nature. It's in an ant's nature. Communism could probably work in an ant's society, but we are not ants. And there's no scenario where we would ever act like that, where there will always be elites who act in their own self-interest. And that's why, communism is doomed to fail again and again and again and again. And of course, the far left idiots will say, it just hasn't been done right.
One thing to mention, Mr. Doctor, where you and I are going to disagree is the fact that they are educated. They are very educated. A lot of the woke left are extremely educated when it comes to
overeducated,
the education system. But there's studies that shows that that's their downfall. Because if you look at our education system today, at least over the past 50, 60 years, it does not critical thinking, rewards regurgitation. So you are trained from a young age you're trained to repeat what you're being told, not to question it. And studies are starting to come out showing that the more educated are as per the education system, not as in the personal education that you do, like I do, I read a lot, right? But if the more educated you are from the education system, the more gullible you are, the easier you are to control, because your whole life you've been told what to think, you've been told not to question, and you've received rewards in good marks and diplomas for being judged on how good you are at repeating, not questioning. So it just makes sense that a lot of those educated people in the West are very easy to control because they've been controlled and indoctrinated their whole fucking life, and they were never rewarded for their critical thinking. So it just makes sense. It's logical when you think about it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Joe Stradamus says, except in China. I assume you were talking about when I said, I was just a minute ago, I said that communism, is doomed to fail. Well, yeah. So, I mean, China is not actually fully communist. So I just quickly Googled how communist is China. The AI overview says China is often described as a, let me share it here. China is often described as a communist country due to its political system. Politically, it is communist. However, the country's economy has shifted significantly towards a market-based system, leading some to describe China as a state capitalist country. So that's why it kind of works in China, because they've changed enough to a market economy. And a market economy is the system that actually does factor in human nature. It gives us a profit motivation. It says if you work hard, in theory, you will be rewarded. And if you have innovative ideas, or you invent a process or a system or a tool that does something a little better, you will be rewarded. And that is all in keeping with human nature. So essentially, Chinese, in essence, China's system is a complex mix of communist ideology and capitalist practices. While the CCP maintains its political dominance and a significant role in the economy, the country has embraced market-based principles and integrated into the global economy. So to the extent that China does work as a communist country, it's because they've incorporated enough capitalistic market-based practices to make it work. Politically speaking, though, they're still communist.
China is a communist country, plain and simple. It is just the way they handle international trade that's different. They are still a communist country within the country, but the way that they interact with, let's say, the US in a free exchange way is more capitalist. But if you live in China, you are under a communist country. Internationally, they allow for exchange of goods and services, but don't be fooled that the government is involved in every single fucking aspect.
Well, yeah,
they
of course,
control it. So I know what you're saying is just that this is why when you use AI, you got to be very careful, because you have to remember that it is very leftist people that write those AI tools. Always keep that in mind. But the point is that they're still communists, but they have to be able to somehow operate in a capitalist system that is a worldwide system. But as a root, they're communists. Try becoming rich as a regular dude without having the government get involved in your business. It ain't gonna fucking happen.
Yeah. I mean, you can kind of, it's like, it is a mix of both. You're right. Like, for example, Jack Ma, the guy who started Alibaba, I believe is still China's richest man. He could not, he could not have made that much wealth without at least tacit approval of the government. And he keeps his wealth at the pleasure of the government. They can, at any time, take it from him. But yeah, they've adapted enough market principles that basically it's ownership as long as they want you, as long as they like you, right? You can own things, you can own a company as long as they like you, which really isn't real ownership. Because if as soon as they stop liking you, the government can take everything you own. That's not real ownership. But it's enough to make them, as you said, they do have to slot into a capitalist world economy.
The best way to see it is Huawei. Do you know what the tech company Huawei? So they make cell phones, they make telecommunications equipment. Like in my old job, we had considered them, but in the US right now, if I'm not mistaken, it is not possible for you to buy a Huawei phone, because some of the Huawei phones are great fucking phones, great camera, great
I had one.
Tech,
I liked it.
But do you know that in the US, if I'm not mistaken, last time I was there, at least when I bought my new Pixel, you could not own a Huawei in the US. They wouldn't put them on their networks. So companies like Spectrum, companies like Virgin will not sell those devices. And if you look on the professional side, if you look at Huawei technology for telecommunication services, especially in the 5G area, they make great equipment. But companies in Canada weren't really allowed to buy them because of the connection that they have with the Chinese government. They are involved in every single fucking aspect of this shit.
Yeah,
So that's the problem, right? You cannot separate
the government from,
technology, for example, from the government. You can't, because it's controlled by them. They always have the last say. So you can quantify it as, oh, the communism there is not as bad as Stalin in Russia, but that is just because of the international trade. Because as a country, they're communist, but they have to deal, as we've been saying, in a capitalist world. So they needed to find a way to adapt internationally. But don't get fooled. Don't be fooled. Sorry, they are communists, and there's a good reason why their equipment cannot be used in major telecommunication services in North America, because we don't want their fucking spies to be creeping up on every single piece of data that goes through that technology. So yeah.
Exactly right. Like, they'll tell any American businessman, business person, business executive or whatever, will go over to China.
Business people.
They will often get briefed by the State Department, and they're told you have to assume that the government is involved in every single conversation and deal that you're doing. And it makes, you think of something like TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese government. And what perfect example.
Yep. Great point. I forgot about TikTok, but you're bang fucking on that one. Bang on. Good point.
We're we're being extremely naive if we think that they don't have a heavy hand. Like, maybe they haven't aggressively used it yet, but they know it's there as a tool. And if at any moment, like, think about that, how effective a tool that is to have in your enemy's society, something where you can tweak a few knobs and probably gain 20 points of support for whatever issue you want, period. If you want, and sure, you could think, oh, well, who cares about, like, if it's like some stupid issue that's not important, but like, what if, it could be any issue. Human beings are fundamentally persuadable. And one thing we always overestimate is how, independent our thought is. Everybody says, oh, ads never, they never convince me to buy anything. Why do you think companies, they just spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year just for funsies? They do it because it works, and they have metrics showing it works again and again and again.
In North America, compared to the content that is showed to China.
Yeah, they won't do it.
People, no, it is completely different. There's a lot of documentaries out there that will show you the difference. And right then and there, it tells you how powerful the government, not only the government is, but how smart they are in understanding the power of an application like TikTok. I believe last time I checked, it was the second biggest social media platform in the world outside of Meta, that comprises Facebook and Instagram. I believe they're the second or third, depending if you group Facebook and Meta together or not. But they're top three biggest social media platform by a communist country that won't even show you the same videos that you see in North America to their own people. So,
and it makes you wonder, like, why they was pushing the trans stuff so heavily, especially during COVID and the pandemic, when everyone was around, just watching TikTok all day. What an effective weapon of mass destruction to convince a large segment of the population to start cutting their genitals off, convincing them that men can become women, that the very reality that they thought that they had was not true. Like, that's such an effective weapon. And man, we really, I don't know, like, just based on like freedom, I don't want to say they should ban it, but like, oh man, if anything should be banned, it should probably be that.
I don't believe in banning it. I believe in understanding, like, people being responsible, especially parents, because as somebody, I have a major audience on TikTok, and I can tell you that the people that use TikTok is not the same as the people that use Facebook, Instagram, X. The demography is completely different. And TikTok is really used for younger people. So
Yep.
not only do they have a social media platform that is catered to the country, but they cater to young minds. This is what's insane, is that they have the power. So if we understand that the average brain, especially in a man, doesn't finish developing until 25 years old, and your major demography is around 18 or below 25. That's
Mm-hmm.
the major demography of TikTok. So you have a social media that is controlled by a communist country that does not align with Western values, that has access to the young minds. Just like
Yeah.
you said about marketing, it ain't a fucking accident that they did that. It's not
Yeah.
an accident that it's not the same type of content that's being shown in North America that's being shown to its own citizens. They're not dumb. Don't underestimate those people that are fucking smarter than you and I. A lot fucking smarter.
Yep.
They know what they're doing.
Oh yeah, they're not stupid. They're not spending all that money if it doesn't work. And Mr. Doctor, final one before we move on, says, do you think BRICS will support Iran militarily in this war? No, militarily. I mean, it depends what you define. I don't think ground troops, but intelligence probably, possibly up to even some air support. I could see it. And it really depends how, I guess, much this escalates, how fast it spreads. I haven't seen, it seems like every 2 hours there's a new something new. So I guess we'll see, but you never really know.
The thing to keep in mind, Mr. Doctor, is this. The next wars are not going to be fought man to man. It's not going to be man to man combat. It's going to be an economic war. It's going to be an indoctrination war with tools like TikTok, with economic like BRICS, weakening the US through proxy wars like what's going on in Iran and Israel. Same thing as what I was talking about earlier about how they have the capability of rerouting 30% of the fucking internet to their country when that fucking data does not belong there. It is a war of attrition that they've been planning for decades. And they are just trying to weaken the number one superpower in the world, that is the US. And maybe everything that we're seeing right now developing through the conflict between Iran and Israel is what they need in order to push BRIC, to push that monetary system, that new money. Because remember what I said earlier, and as per Strauss in the fourth wave, or what was it, the fourth, fuck, why am I drawing a blank on that book today? On fuck, what was it? Not
the
the
fourth
wave,
turning.
the fourth turning. Thank you. It's the Navy. It's around to 120 years. 80 years ago, it was the British pound that fell to the American dollar. We're about time to see that happening. So imagine that China can weaken the economy of the US even more than what Biden has been doing over the past few years. That could be exactly what they need to push a currency like BRIC. And I would be curious to see what's the latest development in BRICS, because they keep on having meetings between China, Russia, and all the other countries. I can't remember off the top of my head the list of countries are part of it. But how interesting would it be to see that Iran is part of it? Because I don't know if they are or not. I'm not saying that they are, but are they? You're in front of your laptop. You should be able to see who are the countries that are part of BRICS. But
yeah, it's Brazil, Russia,
Maybe
India, China. And
who else? Because I know there's a bunch of smaller countries that are part in there. Is Iran part of it? Because I don't know. I'm just asking. I really don't know right now.
I didn't think so, but yeah,
I don't think so either.
Oh yeah, they are. No, they are. They are.
Oh, there you go. Conspiracy theory for you.
Russia, China, India, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates.
There you go. Conspiracy theory for you guys out there.
Really interesting. So
I love rabbit holes like those.
Yeah, those are fun. All right, so what we'll do is I'll play the Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson interview where they talk about this, and we'll probably end on that note.
Oh, I'm the one that asked you to play it because I saw that this morning. This looked like, I don't believe that this was genuine.
You
the
think
video is real. Like the video is real because Tucker Carlson posted it, so I know that the video is real. I'm not saying the video is AI, but it looks like theater to me. They look like two fucking clowns on that video. That's why I wanted you to play it.
Yeah, they do. I actually haven't seen it yet. I just wanted to watch it here on the first time, but I watched 10 seconds. I'm like, oh, both these guys, man. Like, fuck. You just want to punch both.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. I'm just going to pause it there. Why? Who cares? Like, I mean, does it? I think I understand what Carlson is saying. Like, I assume he's saying you haven't really done any research whatsoever, but I don't know. And it's funny because Tucker, of course, Carlson, he didn't know how many lived there either until he Googled it just before this interview. But and don't get me wrong, I'm not defending Ted Cruz in any way. He's got such a punchable face, that fucking guy, man. All right, we'll keep going.
But that's what I was saying. I think it's theater. That's exactly what I was saying.
You think it's staged?
Fuck, man. It's just Tucker Carlson. I like some of the stuff that he does. There's a lot of like the face that he has right now. I would love to punch him.
I'm just gonna say that face right now. That's 90% of his life. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So and just his laugh. You know when he laughs, oh man, it doesn't ever bother me the way that he laughs. It just looks like it looks like two drunken idiots. They're having a political conversation at the bar while being drunk. That's what it sounds to me.
Yeah. We'll finish this here, and then I'll jump on.
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's, it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who claims
anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
They're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that,
we're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was
right. With our help.
It does feel theatrical, doesn't it?
Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay. Yeah. It's just two really punchable people in a room together, man. As Joe says, add Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk to that room, there would not be enough fists. I think, I don't know. It did have a theatrical feel to it. Tucker Carlson's interview style annoys me. Like a lot of it's just gotcha questions, or not even gotcha questions, but like, I don't know. Like it's not like he actually learned anything. It was more about like being entertained or whatnot. But it was funny seeing these two guys go at it.
But they look like two drunk idiots. That's what I was saying. Like they really look like two people that are going to start calling each other names. Like I don't see those two guys, to me, reminded me of two woke people, a woke liberal and a liberal getting in an argument where they're just calling each other names. That's the same rhetoric. It's the same type of action. Those guys are just, it's hard to believe that one of the guy has one of the most popular podcasts on the planet and the other guy is actually in politics. He's an elected leader. and they're sounding like that. I would have killed that conversation in a second. I wouldn't have participated in the conversation with Tucker Carlson. I've been on fucking, what was the name? Commons Ground, Jubilee's Commons Ground, where I was surrounded by fucking feminists telling me that supporting men was wrong. Did I get in battles of words with them? No. It's not a war that I can win. Remember, you never play chess with a pigeon, because the pigeon is going to shit all over the fucking board and start prancing like it won. You do not argue with idiots, because the only thing that they can do is bring you down to their level. And guess what? They have more experience than you. They will make you look stupid every single fucking time. The hardest thing to do sometimes is to do nothing and not arguing with idiots.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that analogy, what was it, the pigeon playing chess with the pigeon, I think it works here.
I fucking love that analogy. I don't know where I got it from. It ain't mine. Let's just say I didn't invent it. I'm just repeating, but it's a great analogy. It gives you a good visual.
Joe says smarmy. The word smarmy comes to mind. That's the word I was looking for. Very smarmy.
What the fuck is smarmy? I've never heard that word before. What the fuck is smarmy?
I'll get the actual definition. It's one of those words that, like, I don't know, you don't really often know the definition. Irritating and wheedling in a way that is perceived as insincere or excessive. That didn't help.
That sounds about
right. Smug, false earnestness. Yeah, like, false earnestness. Yeah. I think that fits. Sylvie's taken off. She says,
I like it, bro. Twat and smarmy.
Smarmy, yeah. Those are
smarmy. You're let's combine them. You're a smarmy twat. You're a smarmy twat.
Yeah.
I don't argue with smarmy twats.
Yeah, exactly. Pam says, please explain the tie choice, Nico. He used to wear bow ties, doesn't he? At least he's wearing a regular tie now.
And it's I don't know. I can't explain Tucker Carlson.
Yeah,
there's some of the stuff that he did that I agree with. Like, I agreed with when he went to interview Putin. I agreed when he went to interview Bukele, because it's something that other people weren't ready to do. But that type of rhetoric, that type of content really bothers me. I can't listen to that type of shit. I don't know how people are interested by that. It drives me nuts. It is like dumb content meant to dumb me down, and I don't have that many brain cells to kill.
Yeah. I feel you. All right, I'll probably put a pin on it there. Got to go bring my kid to work, and it looks like you should at some point probably focus on the road. I don't know. I assume you're hands free, right?
I'm hands free. I'm not even touching the steering wheel. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. Yes, but it's raining, and I'm almost in Toronto, so it's a good place to kill it. But it's a great segue to say, guys, over the next 2 days, I will be in just outside Toronto at an NCI event, and I will be live streaming from there. So this is the type of content you can see in the future, where, at least I'll speak for myself, I will be more on the road as a journalist, hitting those events and bringing you the news directly, and not just from basement somewhere in Montreal.
Yeah. And also a good segue into reminding you guys, tomorrow we have Mark Nixon, who's going to be here to talk about all things G7 Summit. And also we might ask him some questions about the chat he had with Pierre Poilievre yesterday. Let's see what those two talked about. So you don't want to miss that, guys. Tune in.
We will. We definitely will.
Yes, absolutely. Guys, as always, you could have been anywhere in the world today, and you chose to be here with us, and we appreciate that. If you do want to support the show, if you're new to the show and you want to show your support, you can do so by becoming a member in YouTube. You can do that through the it just says become member or join or something. Is that what the wording? Okay. You can You can do that through YouTube. That's the best way to support us there. Other than that, guys, big show tomorrow. You definitely don't want to miss it. We're gonna have all kinds of good stuff to talk about with Mark, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. And hopefully, we will see you there. Be safe and have fun. Thanks, Pam. I'll see you tomorrow.